The Delamaré Music Continuum Essay Reading. The Delamaré Music Continuum is an adaptive, pressure-free framework for musical learning created by Sarnia Delamaré. It understands sound not as a ladder of achievements to be climbed, but as a living field that can be entered, explored, and returned to across a lifetime. Rather than separating technique, theory, improvisation, composition, and listening into rigid hierarchical stages, the continuum treats them as interdependent behaviors that emerge at different intensities according to context, nervous system, age, intention, and individual capacity. Progress is measured by clarity, comfort, sustained engagement, and the growth of agency, not by speed or comparison. At its core, the continuum privileges resonance over correctness, agency over compliance, and time over urgency. It rejects fixed categories of beginner and advanced. Recognizing that the same material, an open string, a single gesture, a sustained drone, a visual line, can hold equal musical truth for a child encountering music for the first time, an adult returning after years away, a neurodivergent learner, or an experienced performer. Learning stabilizes when safety replaces pressure, listening precedes performance, and curiosity is allowed to lead. The framework is not a method to be completed, but an architecture of rooms. Flexible spaces that invite entry, return, and deepening for every kind of musician. Who the continuum serves. The Delamaré Music Continuum is designed for the widest possible range of learners. It works with children of diverse abilities, including those with special educational needs, sensory processing differences, and neurodivergence. It supports adult beginners and returning players who need emotional safety and permission to sound without judgment. It welcomes instrumentalists, vocalists, composers, and self-directed learners across instruments and traditions. Because the same principles of small steps, attentive listening, and embodied contact apply equally to all, the continuum functions both as a primary developmental pathway and as a complementary toolkit that integrates seamlessly with other methods, Suzuki, Kodali, Orff, traditional classical training, or any structured curriculum, without conflict. Core ethos and practices. Listening is foundational. Before fingers, bow, or voice are asked to produce, the ear is invited to notice stability, tension, beating, and the moment resonance settles. Scales become living maps of orientation rather than ladders of speed. The add one note approach explores a single pitch through articulation, dynamics, emotion, bow direction, and color, then gradually expands, amplifying skill through small, fully inhabited increments. Embodiment is primary, the physical relationship with the instrument, breath, movement, dance, body percussion, and spatial awareness, including continuous pathways such as the orbit, are cultivated from the beginning rather than postponed. Composition, improvisation, and creative decision-making are introduced early so that agency and musical identity develop alongside technique. Visual and image scores form a distinctive practical resource. These non-prescriptive scores, often a clear line or shape on a quiet, dark ground, offer direction, density, contour, and contrast rather than fixed pitches or rhythms. The eye follows the path, the body and impulse decide how sound travels. Time becomes flexible, pitch becomes relative. Such scores reduce visual overload for many neurodivergent learners, restore listening, dissolve the boundary between improvisation and composition, and work equally well for solo or group settings across instruments and voices. Free vocal linguistics treats the voice as a thinking instrument, capable of generating musical material, emotional structure, and semantic suggestion before words are fixed, and sometimes without words at all. Spoken word, provisional syllables, scat, chant, and sustained vowels become low-pressure routes into breath awareness and vocal confidence. The continuum premise that nothing is simply not good removes the ideas that hold performers back. Breathing, central to all continuum musicianship, becomes the natural starting point for voice work. Lyrics, when they arrive, are chosen for fit rather than cleverness. The voice retains agency. Digital tools in the human center. Digital learning tools are valued for distance learning, global access, and egalitarian reach. They support practice, refine listening, and maintain continuity of relationship when physical presence is impossible. Algorithms, synthesis, and adaptive interfaces have long been part of creative electronic and experimental music. Contemporary AI can open genuine pathways for musicians whose physical circumstances limit conventional technique. Yet the hierarchy remains clear. Tools enhance performance. The human factor, personality, idiosyncrasy, the particular body's history of listening and living, stands at the summit of excellence. Generic systems that optimize for probability cannot substitute for presence. Continuum is oriented toward the present and the emerging future. Computation belongs in the toolkit of human musicians. Creativity, healing, and the elevation of existence through the act of performing remain the aim. Microtones, cultural openness, and cross-traditional work pitch is treated as a continuum. Vibrato itself is continuous microtonal motion around a center. Many non-Western traditions, Arabic and Turkish makam, Indian raga and shruti systems, Indonesian gamelan, various African equitonal practices, regard finer intervals as structural rather than exceptional. Digital tools that default to equal temperament can conflict with this flexibility, quantizing or rejecting nuance as out of tune. Continuum encourages tools configured to honor continuous pitch and places listening above any single grid. As a Western-oriented framework with classical roots, the continuum does not claim to teach other cultural grammars from outside. Instead, it offers complementary principles: deep listening, small attentive adjustments, resonance, agency, and permission that can support learners already working within other traditions and enable respectful collaboration without hierarchy or assimilation. Neuroplasticity, safety, and lifelong continuity. Adult brains remain capable of meaningful reorganization. Deliberate, emotionally safe, multisensory practice supports structural and functional change in auditory motor networks. Continuum's emphasis on small steps, reduced threat, intrinsic reward, and consistent returning creates conditions that favor this plasticity, particularly for neurodiverse adult students whose processing styles benefit from predictability, low evaluative pressure, and sensory-based feedback. For children, the same conditions allow composition, ear skills, and embodiment to develop early, building internal maps that later technical work can inhabit rather than invent. About the creator, Sarnia Delamaré FRSA is a multi-instrumentalist, educator, author, and the originator of the Continuum Approach. Her work focuses on confidence and creative well-being, neurodiversity-aware learning, sustainable practice, long-term musical development, and artistic, reflective musicianship. The Delamaré Music Continuum grows from decades of teaching and creative practice and is designed to restore curiosity, agency, and a living relationship with sound for musicians of every age, ability, and background. The Continuum is not a syllabus to finish. It is a framework to grow within, one that values continuity over perfection, care over compliance, and learning as a lifelong adaptive process. Whether used as a primary pathway or as a complementary set of tools, it invites every learner to enter the field of sound with safety, attention, and the quiet freedom to belong. The Delamaré Music Continuum is supported by a growing library of practical tools and supplementary materials. A number of these resources are already published and available. Further scores, studies, recordings, and teaching materials continue to be developed and will be released as the framework expands. Find all tools, books, and lessons at www.iServalan.com.